Hi, everyone. This is a really exciting day. This is Ringo Starr's 80th birthday. Can you believe it? The first of the Beatles to reach the age of 80. And in the case of Ringo Starr, it's really miraculous because, as he always is fond of telling in his stories, when he was a young boy, he almost died. Doctors would tell his mom he'll be dead in the morning. He was very sickly as a child. And in fact, I think one of his relatives, an uncle or something, used to call him Lazarus because he kept like rising from the dead. And Ringo's looking greater and is performing greater than he ever has. So happy 80th birthday to Ringo. And I thought for this occasion I would do a ranking of his 20 albums. These are the studio albums that Ringo's done. He's had 20 releases. And I'm going to rank them. These are just a matter of personal preference. And I got to say that for the beginning because a lot of the people sometimes get really upset, because they say, well, this album is better than that album. Why do you have this album here and this album down there? It doesn't make any sense. Well, the thing is, because it's all a matter of subjective opinion. What would be the point of doing a list like this if there was only one correct way to list these? Then none of us would have to do our own individual rankings. We just would have one list, one master list, and we could refer to that. Okay, now I'm going to start with number 20, work my way up to number 1. There are some changes here I noticed, especially near the bottom of my list from the last time that I did these rankings. I think some of them are different. Um, these things can change from year to year. Maybe next year it'll be different for me. This is how it stands right now. Number 20, I went with an album that's going to confuse a lot of people because I know a lot of Ringo fans like this album, and I thought I liked it better than I did. And that's his country album, Coos of Blues. Let me explain now. I think Ringo has a great voice for country music, and I think that Ringo should put out another country album. This is actually an enjoyable record when you're in the right mood for it, but you have to be in the right mood. And Ringo sings country very well, it suits his voice. But the problem for me is, I think when I want to hear a Ringo album, just don't think I want to hear Ringo's country album. I'd rather hear him doing his own stuff, so to speak, or maybe cover other kind of covers that are not in the genre of country. Or number 19, I've also started to feel this. I played this recently again, Sentimental Journey. Sentimental Journey is Ringo's album of American standards, really. And I got to say, again, the production on this album is fantastic. Ringo sings these songs pretty well, most of them, within the limits of his range and his voice. But again, have to be in the right mood for this. And I think I'd rather hear Ringo's own Ringo albums, if you know what I'm saying, rather than hearing him do country or old American standards. But it's not that this is a bad album. Buku's of Blues and Sentimental Journey, neither one would I call a bad album. I'm just putting them last because of my moods lately with Ringo. Okay, number 18. This is the first of the so-called Ringo albums I'm putting up here. And of course, I have a reputation that also pisses off a lot of Ringo fans because a lot of Ringo fans like this album, Old Wave. I think it's his worst album as far as his regular albums go. I'll say what I always say. I really love only one song on here. It's She's About a Mover, which is a real rocker. That's a cover song. Ringo does a fantastic version. And then I like the opening track, In My Car Is Okay. Hopeless is fun. That's about it, really. I think there's a lot of misfires on this album. I'm not a fan of Old Wave, and I know it's a favorite of many Ringo fans. Similarly, I'm gonna probably confuse people again with number 17. I go with Choose Love. Out of Ringo's latter day, more modern stuff as we get it past the 2000s. This is probably my least favorite album. I think the title track is very awkward. It rocks along, but it's awkward, and he really has to rely on a lot of cliched, you know, names of songs and things like that I can't really appreciate when he does that too much. And there's other tracks I like on this album, but Choose Love's never been up there. Number 16 is one of Ringo's most recent albums from 2015. Number 16, I put Postcards from Paradise. I don't think this is a bad album, but I tell you, there's very little on here that really knocks me out. You know, what can I say? You know, it's you see how albums go over time. You see how they wind up lingering or not for you. If you wind up thinking that they're worth repeated listens, or if you kind of just put them on the shelf. And Postcards from Paradise isn't really doing much for me as time goes on. Now, number 15. This is an album that a lot of people would put dead last as Ringo's worst album. And you know what I'm talking about right now, right? It's the 1977 often maligned and hated album, Ringo the Fourth. Ringo the Fourth. I'm not going to call this an exceptional album. Not even going to maybe call it a good album. But as I find, who can understand how these things work out for you? You know, it's all subjective, as I said at the top. And this album, even though it's Ringo, not at his best, he was inebriated a lot of the time, and he doesn't perform very strongly on a lot of tracks. But it's Ringo from the 70s, and I actually would rather hear this than a lot of the ones I just mentioned before. So uh, it falls strangely, I guess, at number 15 for me. Number 14, this is an album, Ringo 2012. You know, he couldn't really think of anything more interesting to call it. I forget what he wanted to call it. It escapes my mind now, but it was a title that had been used already or something like that. Now, so the thing with this is, I really love Ringo's redo of his song with Vinnie Poncia, the song Wings. I really think he does a fantastic version of Wings. He also has a version of Wings here on Ringo the Fourth, but I think he really bests it here. I think the recording of Wings on this album is probably one of the best things Ringo's ever did. It's a very light album, meaning there's only 9 tracks on here, but I like stuff like Anthem, Think It Over, the Buddy Holly cover, Rock Island Line, you know, the classic cover of that. There's a poor version here of Step Lightly that Ringo didn't really have to revisit from the Ringo album, 1973. Why he did that over again, I don't know. The original is much better. Okay, so that was at number 14. Now at number 13, I went with LiverpoolEight. The title track, LiverpoolEight, is really good Ringo. He's talking about his days, you know, as he grew up and what happened in his life, working in a factory and all this, and then eventually getting some gigs and being a musician and playing with, you know who, and Rory and the Hurricanes and everybody else, the Beatles. You know. Anyway, there's some good tracks on this album too. I don't know. For Love, I like. Now That She's Gone Away, I like. Tough Love, I like. There's good stuff on here. Okay, so LiverpoolEight at number 13. Number 12 is where I decided to place Ringo's Christmas album, I Want to Be Santa Claus. This is a fun record to play during the holiday season. There's some original stuff here, you know, Ringo originals, if you will, you know, just for him, and some traditional Christmas songs. So it's a nice mix of that. And I think this album gets better for me every year. It's not great again, but I like the novelty of having a Beatles related Christmas album by at least one of the four. So I put the Ringo Christmas album at number 12. Number 11, this is an album that a lot of people like very much. It's gone higher for me. I think I used to have this lower, but I just think I'm not as familiar with it as I really could be. But I'm getting more familiar with it. It's Rego Rama, which is a pretty decent latter day Ringo album. Again, Rego Rama, I would put at number 11 right now. There's good stuff on here. I think Imagine Me There is on here. I really like that. Never Without You, the tribute to George Harrison. Elizabeth Raines is on here, and Memphis in Your Mind. Again, some good stuff here. And that brings us to the top 10. These are the albums that I feel right now at this point in time, July of 2020, happen to be Ringo's 10 most enjoyable albums for me. Not best necessarily, let's just say most enjoyable for me. Number 10, I went with Give More Love, which was a recent effort for Ringo. I forget what year this came out in. Was it 2018? It's one of his most recent works. Give More Love, lots of good stuff on here. We're on the Road Again. Uh, Speed of Sound, Standing Still. I love the reggae flavored King of the Kingdom. Electricity, So Wrong for So Long, which is a country song. And there's good stuff on here. There's another version of Back Off Boogaloo, like he's redone that a couple of times. And a nice version of Don't Pass Me By. Good stuff. Good recent Ringo effort. Let's Give More Love, starting off the top 10. Here's another album that a lot of people like. Vertical Man. I know a lot of people will be saying, "Well, why do you have this so low on the list? Really, like why isn't it higher on top?" I don't know, but I enjoy it. La Di Da, La Di Da should have been a hit single. Yeah, What in the World, King of Broken Hearts, the cover song Drift Away. Um, just good stuff. Another album that I think would like to see a lot of these on vinyl, by the way. A lot of them have not yet been released on vinyl. That's one of them. Number 8. This is an album that has made probably the most moves up to the top for me. This is a very maligned album from 1976, Ringo's Rotogravure, which I actually think is a good effort. It has a lot of people helping him out on here. You got Paul, John, George, Eric Clapton, Dr. John. There's people on here using the same 1970s formula of let's help Ringo out, Ringo with a little help from his friends. And I just think this is it's holding up for me better than a lot of the other Ringo albums. Don't ask me why, but that's where I'm at. Okay, now I'm going to pick number 7, an album, again, which I know this album is, I call this particular album Ringo's most underrated album. This is a better album than people give it credit for. I think it's his most underrated effort. It's the 1978 album, Ringo Bad Boy Starr, or Bad Boy, if you will. Um, there's some strong material on here, and I think this is an album that if you really play this more and more, you'll find out it's pretty good. I think it gets lumped in with some of Ringo's failures, like he didn't do well with Rotogravure, really didn't do well after that with Ringo the Fourth. So by the time we got to this in the later '70s, I think people just automatically dismissed Ringo. But there's good stuff on here. The title track, the cover song "Bad Boy" is a lot of fun. Good song here called "Who Needs a Heart," Lipstick Traces, Heart on My Sleeve, Hard Times, Tonight. This is a solid album. In fact, as I read the titles to myself, I start thinking, this may have to go higher up. I mean, this is really, really a favorite of mine. It could even be in the top 5 next time. I think it's really unfairly maligned. Okay, next we have the number 6 album. This is from 2010. Again, it's one of the more I call recent Ringo albums, even though it's 10 years old. We have the Why Not album. Uh, Another good effort from Ringo in the 2010s, I think. You have a wonderful duet with Paul that I love. The song Walk With You. Paul sings with him on that. It's a great duet. The Other Side of Liverpool. I love that. I love the song Peace Dream. Terrific. Everyone Wins, which is an older song he kind of brought back here. I love that. Uh, Mystery of the Night. Another album I enjoy from Ringo. Okay, now we're into the top 5. Okay, we just had Why Not at number 6. So here are the top 5, and I'm sure there's a couple of albums not really surprising to people, but maybe some will be. Number 5, I go with Ringo Starr's 1981 album, Stop and Smell the Roses, another underrated album. I find Bad Boy and this to be his most underrated albums in his whole catalog. Again, it's the same thing, the same formula. In 1981, he was helped out with songs by Paul. Paul McCartney did a couple of songs here that he wrote, Private Property and Attention. Good songs. George Harrison helped out with Rack My Brain, which was the single. And the last modest hit of Ringo, I think it got to 40 or somewhere. I think it cracked the top 40, if I'm not mistaken. The title track, Stop and Take the Time to Smell the Roses, I always defend that song. It's an absurd, ridiculous thing, kind of in the vein of the Beatles doing "You Know My Name, Look Up the Number." But you have to see the video. If you ever get a chance to track down the video of "Stop and Smell the Roses," watch that. Tell me it's not funny and fun. I think Harry Nielsen helped out on that. There's a good version of "Sure to Fall" on here. A good version of "You've Got a Nice Way." "You've Got a Nice Way," which is a song I believe Stephen Stills, if I'm not mistaken. "You Belong to Me" cover. Good stuff. I love this album. That's why it's number 5. Number 4. Here it is, finally. "Good Night, Vienna," Ringo's 1974, a follow-up to his hit album Ringo, self-titled. Again, so much to say that's the same. Help from his friends Elton John and Bernie Taupin help out with Snookeroo. Snookeroo is a terrific track on here. "Good Night, Vienna," the title track, John Lennon. There's good stuff. "Ooh Wee," "All by Myself," the "No No" song. Everybody knows the "No No" song is one of the most popular of Ringo's songs. We have here "Only You and You Alone," that John Lennon actually suggested for Ringo, the arrangement of that. And it's a good album. Not as good as the self-titled Ringo album, but a decent follow-up. Now, number 3, which I'm very proud to bring up as number 3. I'm so happy to say this. Ringo's newest album. This album came out last October. It's not even a year old yet. This came out in 2019. You may have to listen to it 2 or 3 times, but I think it'll click. This is an album that I rave about, for Ringo anyway. I think it's Ringo at the top of his game. He sounds good. His drumming is good. The songs are up-tempo, most of them. You got a couple of songs that are not up-tempo, but most of it's up-tempo, fast, happy, upbeat kind of stuff. And it's over the album far too quickly. It makes you hunger to listen to it again right away. And I had this CD in my car for weeks and weeks last October when it came out, and on into November. I just could not get enough of this album. I don't know what it is, but I'm so happy. It may be Ringo's last. He says maybe he won't be making albums anymore. We don't know, but he's not sure. But if it is to be his last, he goes out with a bang. I mean, I really enjoy that album. Okay, number 2, second Ringo album that I think is his second best, my second favorite. Happens to be what I think is this one, really his second best, and along with being my second favorite. And it's "Time Takes Time" from 1992. Just a real good pop album. Ringo was back in form again. He'd been out of the business for like 9 years or something like that, and didn't have an album in all that time. And "Weight of the World," this lead-off single, should have been a big hit. But by this time, this album was not promoted well. And it was not promoted well, and people didn't really want to know anymore. It was Ringo. They just disregarded him. But every song on here is a winner. This has got 10 tracks on here, and every one is pretty much a winner. Maybe there's a couple that I'm not as wild. My least favorite songs on this album are "Runaways" and "What Goes Around," but still I enjoy them enough. The other 8 are just fantastic. "Time Takes Time." You got to seek that album out if you haven't heard it, and I think it's got a Beatlesque flavor on a lot of tracks. So, and of course, number 1, you knew this going in, was the 1973 classic masterpiece. I don't think anything will ever defeat this as Ringo's best album, aptly titled Ringo, the self-titled work. This was the first time that Ringo really got together with his old friends and bandmates, and really they delivered for him. I mean, there's classics on here. There's 2 number 1 singles. John Lennon helped him with "I'm the Greatest," wrote it for him and sang along with him on it. "Have You Seen My Baby," Randy Newman. "Photograph," the big classic hit George Harrison helped with. That was a number 1. "Sunshine Life for Me," Sail Away Raymond. That's another George Harrison hit. "You're 16," the cover song. That was another number 1. Ringo had 2 number 1 singles on this. "Step Lightly," McCartney does a song here, "6 O'Clock," or he wrote a song here that is just fantastic. "Devil Woman." This is classic. This is Ringo First time with a little help from his friends, or a lot of help from his friends on here. And of course, you had Jim Keltner and other people playing here. The cover has the cast of characters there, much like Sergeant Pepper. It is really a fantastic album, and one of the all-time best solo Beatle albums, period. Never to be defeated. I don't see how anybody could ever not pick this as number one. And that's it. Happy 80th birthday, Ringo. May you have many more. And thanks everybody for watching and partaking in the video.